For 8 years, from 1931 to 1939, the sky over the American heartland turned black at midday. Dust storms rolled in walls 1,000 feet high. Cattle drifted dead against the fences. Wheat fields blew away to nothing. And the families who refused to load the truck and join the caravans heading west held on through all of it. Not on luck, on skill. The Dust Bowl was survived by an extraordinary depth of practical knowledge, how to run a household under near-total deprivation. Most of it was never written down. The survivors wanted to forget and took the wisdom to their graves. These are 30 of those skills. Number 16 kept children fed when the wheat failed 3 years running. Number 4 meant the difference between sickness and health. Hit subscribe, because this knowledge came at a price almost too high to imagine. Let us count down. Number 30. Sealing the house against the dust. The dust came through every crack. Your great-grandmother sealed her house with whatever she had. Wet rags and window frames, sheets pasted over with flour and water, blankets nailed across doorways. She replaced the seals after every storm, hundreds of them across 8 years. Number 29. Cooking with sand and everything. The dust was in the food, the water, the pot, the bread itself. She learned to cook around it, covering pots between stirs, mixing dough fast, holding a cloth over the plate until each bite. She accepted the grit and fed the family anyway. Not eating was not an option. Number 28. The vinegar wash for grit-coated produce. Any food that came into the house was washed twice, 3 times, 4, often with a splash of vinegar to cut the dust. That dust carried pesticide, animal waste, and disease. The washing was real public health work, and it kept sickness out of a weakened household. Number 27. Stretching one chicken across many meals. When the family had a chicken, she stretched it across the longest run of meals possible. The meat went into soups and stews, the bones boiled down to broth, and the broth became the base of every supper for a week. A single chicken might flavor 10 meals. Number 26. Saving every drop of grease. The fat from any meat went into a can on the back of the stove. That saved grease fried the potatoes, greased the pans, and flavored the beans and vegetables for days. Nothing of the animal's fat was wasted, and the habit outlasted the hard times by decades. Number 25. The chicken as the family's last line of food. A few hens in the yard meant eggs, even when nothing else worked. She fought to keep the flock alive, sheltering them from dust, scraping together feed, culling only as a last resort. The eggs were daily protein, and in the worst times the hens themselves became meat. Number 24. Making one dress last 3 years. There was no money for clothing, so she stretched the wardrobe across the decade, patching and remaking until one dress had dressed 2 or 3 children in turn. Flour and feed sacks became shirts. Worn-out trousers became quilt pieces. Number 23. The wood stove laundry day. Wash day was a major operation. She heated water on the wood stove, scrubbed against a washboard with homemade soap, wrung everything out by hand, and hung it on the line, one eye always on the horizon. A storm that caught the wash ruined a week's work. Number 22. Schooling the children at home. Schools closed during the worst storms, sometimes for weeks. So she became the teacher, drilling reading, arithmetic, and writing by kerosene light. The children's education did not stop because the world was falling apart, and many grew up remarkably accomplished. Number 21. The community of mutual help. No family survived the Dust Bowl alone. Your great-grandparents leaned on neighbors who suffered just as much, sharing food, labor, and care. When a family lost everything, the others brought what little they had. When a baby was born or a person died, the community came. Number 20. Hauling water across long distances. As wells silted up and ponds dried, water came from farther and farther away, hauled in barrels on a wagon, sometimes miles. Once home, it was rationed hard. She used every gallon 3 times. The family, then the floor, then the surviving plants. Number 19. Trapping and eating jackrabbits in vast numbers. As the cattle died and the crops failed, jackrabbits multiplied across the ruined land and became the protein that kept families going. He hunted them, and whole communities held rabbit drives that took thousands at a time. She learned a dozen ways to cook them. The meat was stringy, but the rabbits saved lives. Number 18. Canning every scrap of the rare good harvest. When a rare good year came and the garden actually produced, She canned with the desperation of someone who knew the next 3 years might fail. Every jar was a life raft, and the cellar filled against the bad years that always followed. Number 17. Tumbleweed and thistle for the livestock. When the hay was gone and the pasture buried, he harvested Russian thistle, the young tumbleweed, and fed it to the last few cattle. He learned which weeds the stock could digest. The cows didn't thrive, but they lived, and a living cow could be milked. Number 16. Children's gardens that fed the family. Even the youngest children worked the kitchen garden, watering, weeding, and gathering whatever could be grown. Their labor was real, and the gardens produced food the family genuinely depended on. Childhood, as the Dust Bowl shaped it, was hard but useful. Number 15. The medicine that came from the cabinet, not the doctor. With money tight and doctors far away, she tended the family with what she had: herbal teas, home remedies, careful watching of symptoms, and rest, often the best medicine. She kept her family well through years when a single serious illness could ruin a household. Number 14. Coffee made from anything but coffee. Real coffee became a rare luxury. She brewed substitutes from roasted barley, chicory, dandelion root, and parched grain, anything that could be dried, roasted, and steeped into something dark and hot. It wasn't coffee, but it was warm and bitter and started the day. Number 13. Mending the wagon and the harness with nothing. With no money for repairs, he mended the wagon, the harness, and every piece of equipment with baling wire, scraps of leather, and improvised parts. Nothing was thrown away. The men who could keep the farm's tools running kept their families working when others gave up. Number 12. Building shelter from what blew in. When fence posts blew over and barns collapsed and lumber was nowhere to be found, he built and rebuilt with whatever the storms hadn't carried off. A patched barn beat no barn. A leaning shed kept a chicken alive. Building with nothing was constant work, done between storms. Number 11. Keeping the spirits up through grief and loss. The Dust Bowl killed children. It buried farms, broke marriages, broke spirits. The families that survived intact did so because someone kept the others going, finding ways to laugh, marking birthdays with what little they had, keeping everyone pulling together. This was not a small skill. It may have been the deepest of all. Number 10. Reading the dust storms before they hit. He learned to read the horizon, the strange stillness, the gathering brown wall, the behavior of the animals, and gave the family minutes of warning to get inside and secure the livestock. A storm that caught a person outside could kill them. The families who read the sky best lost fewer of their own. Number 9. Saving the seed for next year, no matter what. No matter how hungry the family got, next year's seed was sacred. He guarded it like gold, because in real terms it was. To eat the seed corn was to surrender on the future itself, and the discipline to keep planting, year after year, was the iron at the heart of staying put. Number 8. The newspaper as floor covering and insulation. Old newspaper was saved for everything. Lining shoes against the cold, stuffed into walls, spread under bedding, layered into clothing in the worst winters. Anything that trapped a little warmth or kept out a little dust was a resource. Nothing was simply trash. Number 7. The barter and the trade circle. Cash had nearly disappeared, so they survived on a constant web of barter, eggs for sugar, labor for the use of a mule, a mess of greens for cured meat. Trading fairly and keeping the trust of the network was a real craft that fed them with no money at all. Number 6. The garden in a barrel when the ground would not grow. When the topsoil had blown away and nothing would grow in the open, she brought soil into the house, packed it into barrels and boxes, and grew what she could in a sheltered corner. Even a few tomato plants produced what the open garden couldn't: nutrition and stubborn hope at once. Number 5. The wood and the heat that kept the family alive. With coal expensive and trees scarce on the plains, he burned anything that would burn: broken furniture, fence posts, dried cow chips, twisted hay. Getting heat out of poor fuel was a daily challenge, and she worked the stove to wring every calorie from every stick. Number 4. The endless washing of hands, face, and food. The dust carried disease, and she kept the family healthy through constant, simple hygiene: hands before every meal, faces every morning, food before every preparation. The water was precious, the work never-ending. But keeping clean in a world full of dust was one of the great unsung public health practices of those years. Number 3. The faith that something would change. 8 years is a very long time to live with disaster. They held on through a faith that the rains would return, that the land would recover, that the family had a future. That faith wasn't naive. It was a survival strategy. The families who held it stayed. Many who lost it left. Number 2. The community that refused to break. Whole communities stuck together through the 8 years. The churches, the schools, the granges, the neighborhood bonds that survived every kind of pressure. They knew no single family could make it alone, and when the rains returned, those communities were the ones that rebuilt. Number 1. The decision to stay. Above all, the families who survived made the decision to stay, and made it again every morning for 8 years, against every reason to leave. They chose the hard road of holding on. That choice, renewed across a brutal decade, was the deepest skill of all. The forgetting came when the rains returned, and the survivors wanted nothing more than to leave those years behind. They built new lives and rarely spoke of the dust. The hardest-won wisdom in American memory went quiet, taken, mostly, to the grave. So here's your challenge. Pick one, just one. Save the grease this week and reuse it. Stretch one ingredient across more meals than usual. Set aside seeds from something you grow. Tell me in the comments which one you'll try. And tell me if your own family came through the Dust Bowl. That knowledge did not die. It just went quiet. It is time to start listening again.